The K437, the newest AR in Delta Force that was added with the new season. Now I know what everyone's going to say. How did you get your hands on this? It's currently not really unlockable in Warfare. You can get it if you play Operations by looting the weapon cases that are on 0 dam, and I actually made a quick guide video to show everyone where these weapon cases are located on 0 dam, which you'll find in a card in the top right corner of the video. But don't worry, the weapon will eventually be unlockable in Warfare. So the K437 is an absolute beast in CQB. It is theoretically the highest TTK weapon or highest TTK AR in the game when firing at the chest. So when you're not mixing in any headshots, then it's a completely different scenario if you do mix in headshots. But aiming mid-mass, this is the fastest TTK AR, which is just insane considering how many other weapons are really quick at taking down enemies. It does 25 damage per shot at 780 rounds per minute, which is getting close to the M4's fire rate, but with 5 damage more, which is just insane. Now the range on it is not great. It's kind of the range that you'd get on an SMG, and that's how I approach this build, is making something that will be very, very performant in close quarter to medium range engagements. I tried making something that was, you know, usable in longer ranges, but I didn't really like it all that much. It felt really bad, especially in CQB combat when you would get into those situations, so I completely scrapped that build and decided to stick with something that's a little bit more adapted to how this weapon plays. So starting off with a blank slate here, for the barrel, now you have 3 options here. I chose to go with the broken blade short barrel. Now these 2 barrels here give you increased range, but the penalties are so bad on them that, yeah, I really didn't want to use them. And you only get plus 3 meters with this one, and then plus 2 meters with the integrally suppressed barrel. So I chose to go with the broken blade short barrel, so install that, and then I calibrated this with plus 50 grams and negative 10 millimeters in length to get extra ADS speed and a little bit of extra firing stability. For the muzzle, so if we look at the recoil control or the recoil pattern of this weapon, you can see there's kind of a bend in horizontal recoil, so right and then left, and that's what I'm trying to correct, and there is quite a bit of vertical recoil as well, so we're going to try and correct a lot of that. So for the muzzle, we're going to go with the Bastion horizontal compensator, which is going to correct that side to side recoil. And then for the foregrip, I had originally put the resonant ergonomic grip on there, but it just didn't mitigate the recoil enough to my liking, so I went with the X25U angled combat grip, which is probably one of the better grips in the game if I'm being completely honest. And then I calibrated this with plus 2 slots to get a little bit of extra control. For the magazine, so you get options here. You get a 45 round extended mag or a 60 round drum mag. I'm a real big fan of the 45 round extended mag because you do get that mag assist, and it has slightly less penalties, albeit this specific mag does affect the accuracy here, but we'll make up for that. So install that and then put the mag assist, which is literally no downside to do. For the rear grip, a classic, the AR heavy tower grip, because it gives you an extra slot and it has such good stats. It's all positives across the board. And then we're going to calibrate this with plus 50 grams to get a little bit of extra control. Now I actually have 2 builds to share with all of you, and both codes will be in the description down below. They're just very slight variations of one another. For the grip mount here, I went with the balanced grip base, which gives you positives across the board as well. For the stock, we're going to go with the MRGS skeleton stock, which gives you some handling and stability at the cost of some accuracy. Now it's not a fantastic stock by any means, but it really gives you some of those points back that are kind of lacking right now in the build. So install that, and then for the calibration, I simply went with plus 4 and plus 2 to get extra aiming stability while breathing and extra firing stability. For the sight, a classic that I always put on most of my builds, the XRO quick response sight. Put anything that you like here, and then I calibrated this with negative 20 millimeters. Now you have 3 rail slots, but you can put handguard panels on all 3 of these. So that's what I chose to do instead of putting a laser on one of these. Now for this first variation, I put 3 KC Hound handguard panels to get a little bit of that stability back, because there was quite a bit of aim punch that I wasn't a fan of without these. So go ahead and install these. So this is the first build, and then I did a slight variation to it to try and play with something a little bit different, because I still found like there was lacking a little bit of stability. But if we look at the stats here, they're pretty well rounded, with stability being the lowest one out of the 4 main ones, and handling being a little bit higher than the base handling of the weapon. So what I did on my second kind of variation for this build, I went with the stable grip base, so getting a lot more stability back at the cost of accuracy, getting 1 extra control and losing a little bit of handling. And then I swapped all these 3 handguard panels for the Hornet handguard panel, giving us extra extra accuracy for those CQB fights, considering we don't have a laser on here. So those are the two variations here, and as you can see, the stats are very, very similar, but on this one you get a little bit more accuracy, one extra control at the cost of a little bit of handling, and you also get a little bit more stability. So both builds function very much the same. I'm still kind of torn on which one I prefer. Now, in order to use any of these builds, you will need to level up the weapon to 64. I was fortunate enough to have a ton of weapon XP cards saved up, so I just boosted it to max right off the rip. But this thing, this freaking weapon that is unfortunately not attainable via Warfare, is just, it's a monster in CQB. You're doing 25 damage per shot at 780 rounds per minute. As I said, the fastest TTK AR in the game currently when you're aiming mid-mass. If you start mixing in headshots, then other weapons have a slightly faster TTK because some of them have higher headshot damage multipliers. But this thing is just absolutely insane. And I'm sure a lot of people that I was killing with this thing were like, what the hell is that weapon? Why does it kill so fast? And where did he get it? And as you saw in the build section of this video, I already unlocked the skin for it that requires 300 kills. So yeah, getting very, very high kill games with this thing, and it's just been an absolute blast. At first I was like, this weapon feels like it doesn't really have a spot, but then when I actually like sat down, looked at the stats, and saw that it did 25 damage per shot with that high RPM, I was just like, okay, this thing is an absolute beast, and it's just gonna melt anybody that comes within close proximity to me. Obviously, the one downfall of the K437 is the limited range, so you're only doing max damage at 20 meters. You could try something with a little bit longer range and put like the long barrel on there with a suppressor to maybe bump it up to 26 meters, but I felt like all the downsides that you got from making that longer range build weren't really worth it, at least not for me and how I like to play. And as you see in the footage here, for the most part, even at medium to longer range engagements, it's still very manageable in terms of recoil control. Obviously, it's taking you more shots to down enemies, but this thing shoots so fast and puts so many bullets down range that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because the enemies you're shooting at, even at those longer ranges, are probably going to die pretty quickly. Now, I haven't had the chance to try this weapon in operations, and I know it chambers a brand new round, which is a 300 blackout, but yeah, it is a blast to play with. I was having a ton of fun with this thing, and I'm sure that once all of you get your hands on this weapon, be it you unlock it right now via operations or when it becomes available to unlock via Warfare, are going to have as much fun as me. So in the comment section down below, let me know which weapon you'd like to see featured in an upcoming video. Make sure you look down there as well in the description down below, as well as in top pinned comment. There's going to be 2 weapon share codes for both of the variations of this build, and then also a G-Sheets with all of the different builds I've done for Delta Force. And I'll leave you with a few highlight clips of me using this specific build or a variation of it. In any case, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.
Silent assault.